In the quiet villages of the Visayas in the mid-1600s, long before the Philippines was known to the modern world, a young Filipino boy grew up under the sound of church bells, the rhythm of the sea, and the gentle instruction of faith passed down by missionaries and elders. His name was Pedro Calungsod, and though history remembers him as a saint, his life began in complete simplicity. No wealth, no power, no fame, only a heart open to God. Pedro was born around 1654, during a time when Spanish missionaries were spreading Christianity across the Philippine Islands. As a child, Pedro showed a rare attentiveness to prayer, discipline, and service. He learned the catechism not just by memorizing words, but by living them. His teachers noticed his intelligence, obedience, and deep sense of responsibility, qualities far beyond his young age. At a time when most boys were content to fish, farm, or play by the shore, Pedro felt a quiet calling stirring within him. He became a catechist, someone who helped teach others about the Christian faith. This was no small role. Catechists were often the bridge between missionaries and local communities. They translated, taught, prepared children for baptism, and lived as examples of Christian life. When Jesuit missionary Father Diego Luis de San Vitores began organizing a mission to the Mariana Islands, now known as Guam, Pedro made a decision that would define his destiny. He volunteered to go with the mission, not knowing if he would ever return. He was only around 14 years old. The journey was long and dangerous. The seas were unpredictable, the lands unfamiliar, and the people they would encounter were divided, some curious about Christianity, others deeply suspicious of it. Still, Pedro went, trusting God completely. Upon arriving in Guam, Pedro served tirelessly. He assisted Father San Vitores in baptisms, taught prayers to children, cared for the sick, and helped build the mission. Despite his youth, Pedro showed courage and maturity that inspired those around him. He faced hostility, hunger, illness, and constant danger, but he never complained. However, not everyone welcomed their mission. Some local leaders believed the missionaries brought sickness and disruption to their traditions. Rumors spread that baptism was harmful, even deadly to children. Fear turned into anger, and anger turned into violence. On April 2, 1672, Father San Vitores and Pedro traveled to the village of Tumon to baptize a baby girl after her mother requested it. When they arrived, the child's father, Matapang, a local chief, was furious. Influenced by anti-Christian voices, he believed baptism would bring death to his child. Tension filled the air. While Father San Vitores baptized the child, Pedro stayed close, calm and prayerful. Suddenly, Matapang and another man, Hirao, attacked. Father San Vitores was struck first. Pedro had a chance to escape. He could have run. He could have saved himself, but Pedro stayed. Witnesses later said the young catechist held fast to his rosary, praying quietly as he was speared and struck down. At just 17 or 18 years old, Pedro Calungsod gave his life, not in anger, not in fear, but in faith. His body was thrown into the sea, but his sacrifice did not disappear. The mission continued, the faith endured, and centuries later the Church recognized what heaven had always known, that this young Filipino boy lived and died as a true witness of Christ. In 2000, Pedro Calungsod was beatified by Pope John Paul II. Then, on October 21, 2012, he was canonized as a saint by Pope Benedict XVI, becoming the second Filipino saint after San Lorenzo Ruiz. Saint Pedro Calungsod stands as a powerful reminder that holiness is not limited by age, status, or background. You do not need to be strong in the eyes of the world to be strong in faith. You only need a willing heart. His life speaks especially to the youth, that courage can exist in gentleness, that faith can stand firm even in fear, and that love, when given fully, leaves a legacy far greater than life itself. Today, Saint Pedro Calungsod is honored as the patron saint of Filipino youth, catechists, and altar servers, a symbol of quiet bravery, obedience, and unwavering devotion. And in the story of this young saint, we are reminded that sometimes the smallest voices echo the loudest in eternity.